Shalom Kulam. Welcome everybody. We are starting Hilchot Deot Perek Dalet, the fourth chapter of the Laws of Personality Development. A little bit of an introduction. This chapter deals with Rambam's advice on medical issues, specifically how to keep the body healthy. And it's important to remember that we're talking about the best of medical knowledge as of 800 years ago. Were Rambam alive today, his advice would probably be different in some regards, although quite a bit of his advice still remains valid. And so we start. Ho'il v'hariyat haguf bari v'shalem midarkei Hashem hu. Since the maintenance of the body, a body's health, is amongst the ways of God. For a person cannot become wise and learned if he's ill, and he's always thinking about his bodily ailments. A person needs to distance himself from those things which cause destruction to the body. And to pursue those things which keep the body healthy and hardy. Ve'eluhen, and these are they. Le'olam lo yochal adam ela kshu ra'ev ve'lo yishteh ela kshu sameh. A person should never eat unless he is hungry, nor should he drink unless he's thirsty. Val yasheh nekavav, nor should he restrain his bowels. Va'afilu rega had, even a minute. Ela kol zman shetzarich lashtin u'leasech et reglav ya'amod miyad. Rather, any time when he needs to urinate or defecate, he should get up immediately and do those things. Obviously, not at the very same place. Lo yochal adam ad shetitmele kreso. A person should not eat so that his stomach is full. Ela yifhot kmo revi'a misovato. Rather, he should eat about 3/4 of his full amount. You know, there's a quarter less than whatever his full amount would be. He should also not drink water within his meal. Rather, only a little bit of water, which is mixed with wine. And once the food has become digested in his intestines, then he should drink however much he requires. And this should be pointed out. This is good advice, in fact, because drinking water within your meal, which I'll confess I do, drinking water within your meal weakens your stomach acids and delays the digestion of the food in your stomach. So refraining from water inside your meal is a good choice. And the me'at mazug b'yain, a little bit of water mixed with wine. Why? Because wine apparently causes the digestion to accelerate a bit. And once the food is out of the stomach and drinking the water is not going to dissolve the stomach or weaken the stomach acids, then you can drink whatever you want. And he shouldn't drink too much water, even when the food has been digested. And this is also true because if you drink too much water, it's also bad for you. And this is going to be something that recurs in his statements here. A person should examine himself well. In other words, pay attention to his needs, lest it be that he needs to go to the bathroom. So in other words, you always have to make sure that you don't have to go to the bathroom before you eat. Lo yochal adam ad sheyihalech kodem achila ad shetatchil gufo lachom. A person should not eat until he's walked a while before his eating, so that his body warms up. O yase melacha, or he performs some sort of physical labor. O yaga biyaga, or he exerts himself in some other sort of physical activity, like exercise. The general rule is this: יענה גופו ויגע בכל יום בבוקר עד שיתחיל גופו לחום. Every morning he should exert his body and tire himself out until his body begins to get warm. וישקוט מעט עד שתתיישב נפשו, and then he should rest a bit until he's recovered, and then ואוכל, then he can eat. ואם רחץ בחמין אחר שיגע, and if he washed himself with warm water after he exerted himself, הרי זה טוב, this is good. ואחר כך שוהה מעט ואוכל, then he can wait a little bit and then eat. And this is all good advice as well, because why? If you exert yourself, until you're warmed up, you've increased your metabolism, and your blood is flowing, and your body requires more food and will digest the food more properly. לעולם כשיאכל אדם, whenever a person eats, ישב במקומו או יטה על שמאל. He should sit in one place or lean over on his left side. ולא יהלך, ולא ירכוב, ולא ייגע, ולא יזעזע גופו, ולא יטייל, עד שיתעכל המזון שבמעל. And he should not walk around or ride on a horse or do physical exertion or bounce his body around or such things until the food has been digested into his intestines. וכל המטייל אחר אכילה או שיגע, הרי זה מביא על עצמו חליים רעים וקשים. Anybody who does exert himself or walk around too much after, run around after he's eaten before the food's been digested, brings upon himself bad and heavy diseases. Hayom va'alayla, day and night, and the night together, are 24 שעות, the 24 hours. די לו לאדם לישן שלישן. It's enough for a person to sleep 1/3 of that. שהוא 8 שעות, which is 8 hours. ושיהיו בסוף הלילה, and his sleep should be preferably at the end of night, כדי שיהיה מתחילת שינתו עד שתעלה השמש 8 שעות. So that from the beginning of his sleep until the sun comes up, there should be 8 hours. ונמצא עומד ממיטתו קודם שתעלה השמש. And so that when he gets up from his bed, it's just before sunrise. And the reason for that is so that he can pray in the most appropriate time. לא יישן אדם, לא על פניו ולא על עורפו, אלא על צידו. A person should not sleep face down, nor on his back, but rather on his side. בתחילת הלילה על צד שמאל, ובסוף הלילה על צד ימין. At the beginning of the night on his left side, and the end of the night on his right side. And this has to do with digesting the food in his stomach as it makes its way through the intestines. I'll confess that I have a difficult time maintaining any of this, but this is the advice. ולא יישן סמוך לאכילה, nor should one sleep close after having eaten. אלא ימתין אחר אכילה כמו 3 או 4 שעות. Rather, you should wait 3 or 4 hours after eating before he sleeps. And לא יישן ביום. A person should not sleep during the day, because that would interfere with his nighttime sleep. דברים המשלשים את בני מעיים, those things which loosen the bowels, כגון ענבים ותאנים, בתותים ואגסים ואבטיחים ומאה קישואים ומאה מלפפונות. For example, grapes and figs and mulberries and gas here does not mean pear like we mean it in modern Hebrew. It's a different kind of fruit. The avatichim, or melons of various kinds, whether it's watermelon or the yellow melons, and the insides of kishuim, of what are they called? Squashes, or the insides of cucumbers. All these things loosen the bowels. A person should ochel adam otam b'tchila kodem achila. A person should eat of these things before his meal. V'lo ya'arvem ma'im hamazon, and he shouldn't mix them in with the food he eats. Ela shohe me'at ad sheyetzeu mibeten elyon. Rather, he should, once he eats them, he should wait a little bit until they leave the upper stomach. V'ochel mizono, and then afterwards he should eat his food. The idea here is that you're causing the intestines to activate and be more active before you eat your actual food. Udvarim shehen me'amtzin et bnei ma'im, and those things which cause the intestines to close up more, kegon rimonim ufarishin utapuchim ukrustemmelin, for example, pomegranates, or quince, or apples, or pears. Ochelotam techef limzono velo yarbe mehen. A person should eat them right after his meal, but shouldn't eat a lot of them, because we don't want the intestines to become closed up. Kashe yirtze adam le'echol basar of ubasar be'ema ke'echad. If a person desires to eat both fowl and beef at the same time, then ochel betchila basar of. Initially, the first thing he should eat is the chicken, the fowl. V'chen beitzim ubasar of, and likewise with respect to eggs and fowl flesh. Ochel betchilat beitzim. Initially, he should eat the eggs. Basar be'ema daka ubasar be'ema gasa. If he's eating, say, lamb and beef, then ochel betchila basar daka. He should eat the lamb first. And the rule is le'olam yakdim adam davar kal u'me'acher kaved. Person should always eat the lighter food first and then the heavier food. And I suppose the reason for that would be that the lighter food gets your gets your stomach juices flowing more, so that the food that follows has more of a chance of being properly digested. Bimot hama, during the summer months, ochel me'achalim hakarim, a person should eat colder foods. V'lo yarbe b'tevlin, and shouldn't put on too much spice. V'ochel tachometz, should also eat or drink rather vinegar. U'biyamot gshamim, and during the winter months, ochel ochelin hachamin, he should eat hot foods. U'marbe b'tevlin, and he should put a lot of spice in it. V'ochel me'at min ha'chardal u'min ha'chiltit, and he should also eat some mustard as well as fenugreek. And in this manner, you should behave in the places that are hot and places that are cold. In every place, according to whatever is right for that place. There are some foods which are extremely bad. And it's proper that a person never ever eat them. For example, the large salted and aged fishes. So, for example, large tuna that's been salted and set aside and aged for a long time. And even though this seems a bit strange, the truth is large fish are at the top of the food chain, and they concentrate the poisons, heavy metals, and other materials that come up through the rest of the food chain in the sea. And so it's known that eating too much tuna, for instance, is actually bad for you. Um, I'm not sure why them being salted and so forth is an issue. Maybe it's just that too much salt is also bad for you. Likewise, a gvina mlucha yeshana, aged salted fish, cheese. V'kmehin v'pitriot, likewise, mushrooms and what are the fancy mushrooms called? The ones that are in the ground. Basara maliach hayashan, likewise, old salted meat. Yain migito, and wine that is just been pressed and started to ferment. V'tavshil sheshahat shenadaf recho, and a cooked dish that has been hanging around until it smells bad. In other words, starts to go bad. V'chol ma'achal sherecho ra'a o mar bioter, and any kind of food which has a bad smell or is very bitter smelling. Hare elu leguf kmo sam hamavet. These are the uh, like a deadly poison to the body. V'yesh ma'achalot shehem ra'im, and there's other kinds of foods that are bad. Aval enam kmo harishonot l'ro'a, but they're not as bad as the first. Lefikach raui le'adam shelo le'echol mehen ela me'at v'har yamim arbe. And therefore, it's proper for a person to only eat a little bit of them and only once in a while. ולא ירגיל עצמו להיות מזונו מהם או לאוכלם מזונו תמיד. And he should not accustom himself to eat them on an ongoing basis with his food. כגון דגים גדולים, for example, large fish, like we said, the tuna, וגבינה וחלב ששהה אחר שנחלב 24 שעות, or cheese or milk which has been left out more than 24 hours. ובשר שברים גדולים ותיישים גדולים, or the meat of large oxes or large goats. והפול, or fava, והעדשים, or lentils. וספיר, I'm not sure exactly what that herb is. V'lechem seorim, or oat bread. V'lechem matzot, or matzah bread. V'akruv, and cabbage. V'hatzir, and what's it called? Leeks. V'abtsalim, and onions. V'shumim, and garlics. V'hardal, and mustard. V'atznon, and radishes. Kol elu ma'achalot ra'im hem. I disagree with him on this, but he says that these are all bad foods. I especially disagree about lentils because I love them. But what can I say? This is his advice. A person should only eat of these a little bit, a very tiny amount. And during the winter months. But outside of the winter months, he shouldn't eat them at all. והפול ועדשים בלבד, and favas and lentils alone, אין ראוי לאוכלן לא בימות החמה ולא בימות הגשמים, neither during the summer nor during the winter. And since he lived in Egypt and favas are one of the main dishes in Egypt, I'm not sure what the man ate. ודלורים אוכלים מהן מעט בימות החמה. And squashes a person may eat a bit during the summer times. And there's other foods that are bad, but they're not as bad as any of these. Waterfowl, and small pigeons, vetmarim, and dates, and bread that's been fried or soaked in oil. And solet, which is like cream of wheat, which has been so refined that it has no bran at all in it. Ve'atzir ve'amurias, and uh, these are both fish extracts. Ein ra'ui la'arbot me'achilat elu. It's not right to eat too much of these. Adam shu hacham v'kovesh et yitzro, a person who's wise and controls his urges, v'lo yimashech achar te'avato, and doesn't just go after his desires, v'lo yochal mehem mikol hanizkarim klum, and doesn't eat from any of these things that we've mentioned anything at all, ela im nitzrach lem l'rufuah, unless he needs to for medical reasons, harei ze gibor, this is a hero, this is a strong person. L'olam yimna adam atzmo miperot ilanot, a person should always refrain from eating fruit, tree fruit. Lo yarbe mehen afilu yeveshim, nor should he eat much of them even if they're dry. Ve'en tzarich lomar tuvim, and of course, he shouldn't eat them if they're still fresh. Aval kodem sheitbashlu kol tzorkan, but when they're not completely ripe, harehen leguf kaharavot, they're like swords to the body. V'chen haruvim ra'im leolam, and likewise, carobs are always bad for the body. V'chen perot hamutzim ra'im, likewise, sour fruit is bad. Ve'en ochlim nehen ele me'at b'yemot ha'chama u'b'mekomot ha'chamin, and one should only eat of them a very small amount during the summer months and in places that are hot. On the other hand, figs and grapes and almonds are always good, whether they're fresh or dried. And a person could eat his fill of them. But a person should not always go around eating them, even though they are better than any other of the tree fruit. Hadvash v'ayayin, honey and wine, ra'al ktanim v'yafil zkenim, they're bad for the young and good for the old. V'kol sheken b'yimot gshamim, and how much more so during the winter months. וצריך אדם לאכול בימות החמה שני שלישי מה שהוא אוכל בימות הגשמים. And a person should eat during the summer months about 2/3 of that which he would consume during the winter months. In other words, in the summer you should eat considerably less than you do during the winter. לעולם ישתדל אדם שיהיו מעב רפין כל ימיו. A person should always endeavor that his intestines remain soft his whole life. Via karov l'shilshul me'at, and should be on the side of what's the word? Shilshul. Not diarrhea exactly, but it should be on the side of very soft bowels, very soft movements. V'ze klal gadol b'refuah, and this is a huge rule in medical science of his day, and for that matter in our day. Shekol zman shehara'i nimna o yetze b'koshi halayim ra'im ba'im. That any time when the feces doesn't come out or it comes out only with difficulty, bad diseases follow. Ubama yarpeh adam me'al, and how can a person soften his bowels? If they're slightly difficult, they don't want to move. If he's young, yochal b'boker melochim shlukim mitubelim b'shemen u'muryas u'v'melach. He should eat early in the morning this thing called meluach, which is some kind of a plant which is a bit salty. I'm not sure what it is exactly. Should eat them when they've been boiled and spiced with oil and murias, which is the fish sauce, and salt. Below pat, without any bread. Alternatively, o yishte me shelak של טרדין, או כרוב בשמן, umelech umrias. Or he could alternatively drink the boiling water, the water in which was boiled uh, um, spinach or cabbage, and spice that with oil and salt and also this fish sauce. That's if he's a young person. Bima yazaken, but if he's an old person, yishte dvash mezug b'mayim hamin b'boker. He should drink honey which has been mixed with hot water in the morning. V'yishek kmu arba sha'ot, and wait about 4 hours. V'harkach yuchal dato, and then eat his meal. Yaseh kan yom achar yom. He should do this day after day. Shlosha or arba yamin im tzarach lekach. 3 or 4 days if he needed this. Ad shirpu me'av, until his bowels loosen up. Ve'od klal acher amru be'briyat haguf. And they said another rule with respect to bodily health. Kol zman she'adam mit'amel v'yagea harbe ve'eno savea. So long as a person exercises, does physical activity a lot, and he's not full. Savea means that he ate his fill. Ume'avrafim, and his bowels are loose. Ein holi ba'ala v'kocho mitchazek. He will not get sick, and his strength will increase. V'afilu achal ma'achalot hara'im, and even this is even true if he ate the foods which he mentioned, which are not good. V'kol mishehu yoshev levetach ve'eno mitamel, and anybody who sits secure, so to speak, he doesn't move around, he just sits around. Ve'eno mitamel, he doesn't do any physical activity. Omi shemashhe nekavav, omi sheme'av kashim, or somebody who prevents himself from using the bathroom, or his intestines are clogged up. Afilu achal ma'achalot tovim v'shamar atzmo al pi harefua, even if he ate only good food and kept himself according to medical advice, kol yamav yu machovim v'kochot hashesh. He did this all his life. Nevertheless, because he's sitting around and not doing any work, he's going to get sick and his strength is going to deplete. V'achila gasa leguf kol adam kmo sama mavet. And excessive eating is like a poison, a deadly poison for the body. V'hi ikar lekol hachalaim. And this is the principal cause of almost every illness. And I think we found that this is essentially true. Eating too much and sitting around is not good for you. Rov ha'chalaim abayim al adam, most of the sickness which comes upon a person, einan ela mipnei ma'achalim ra'im, they come mainly because of either bad diet, or mipnei shu memale bitno ve'ochel achila gasa, or because he's filling up his stomach and eating too much. Afilu mima'achalim tovim, even if it's from good food. And this is what Shlomo Melech said in his wisdom. Shomer piv ulshono shomer mitzarot nafsho. Someone who guards his mouth and his tongue from trouble. Someone who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Klomar, that is to say, shomer piv mil echol ma'achal ra. או מלסובע, מלסבוע, ולשונו מלדבר אלא בצרכיו. In other words, a person should keep his mouth from eating bad foods or from filling up on food, and he should keep his tongue from saying things that are not necessary. Derech rechitza, the manner in which one should bathe, and in those days, people did not have indoor plumbing. They didn't have their own bathrooms. They didn't have showers. They had communal bath houses. So, she'yikanes adam lemerchatz, a person should go into the bathhouse, mishiv'a yamin l'shiv'a yamin, at least once a week. ולא ייכנס סמוך לאכילה ולא כשהוא רעב. He shouldn't go in close to having eaten or when he's hungry. אלא כשיתחיל המזון להתעכל. Rather, when the food has started to become consumed in his body. ורוחץ כל גופו בחמין שאין הגוף נגבה בהם. He should wash his body in water that's hot enough that it doesn't burn him, but it should be hot water. וראשו בלבד בחמין שהגוף נכווה בהם. And only his head should be washed with water that's hot enough to burn him. ואחר כך יחוץ גופו בפושרין. Then he should wash himself with lukewarm water. ואחר כך בפושרין ונפושרין, and then less, even more lukewarm water. עד שיחוץ בצונן, until he washes himself with cold water. ולא יעביר על ראשו כלל, לא פושרין ולא צונן. But he should not have the lukewarm or the cold water go on his head. ולא ירחוץ בצונן בימות הגשמים, nor should he wash in cold water in the winter months. ולא ירחוץ עד שיזיע ויפרח כל גופו, and he shouldn't wash himself until he's worked up a sweat. ולא יאריך במרחץ, and he shouldn't stay long in the bath house. אלא כשיזיע ויפרח גופו ישתתף ויצא. But once he's worked up a sweat and he's shaken his body, then he should get out and dry himself. ובודק עצמו קודם שייכנס למרחץ ואחר שיצא שמא יהיה צריך לנקביו. And once again, he should check his need for the bathroom before and after he goes to the bathhouse. וכן בודק עצמו תמיד, and likewise he should always check himself. קודם אכילה ואחר אכילה, before eating and after eating. וקודם בעילה ואחר בעילה, before having sex and after having sex. קודם שיגע ויתעמל ואחר שיגע ויתעמל, before doing physical labor and after it. וקודם שישן וכשיעול, and before he goes to sleep and when he wakes up. הכל 10, in total, 10 different places at times in which he needs to check himself to make sure he doesn't need to go to the bathroom. כשיצא אדם מן המרחץ, when he leaves the bathhouse, ילבש בגדיו ויכסה ראשו בבית החיצון. He should put on his clothing and cover his head in the antechamber of the bathhouse. כדי שלא תשלוט בו רוח קרה, so that he doesn't get affected by a cold wind that might be blowing outside. ואפילו בימות החמה צריך להיזהר, and even during the summer months he has to be careful of this. וישאר אחר שיצא עד שיתיישב נפשו וינוח גופו ותסור החמימות. And afterwards he should pause until he's in control of himself and his body is relaxed and he's shaken off the heat from the bath. ואחר כך יאכל, afterwards he can eat. ואם ישן מעט כשיצא מן המרחץ, קודם אכילה, הרי זה יפה עד למאוד. And if he should sleep a bit before once he leaves the bath, before he eats, this is very good. לא ישתה אדם מים קרים כשיצא מן המרחץ. A person should not drink cold water when he leaves the bath. ואין צריך לומר שלא ישתה במרחץ. And obviously he should not drink within the bathhouse. ואם צמא כשיצא ואינו יכול למנוע עצמו. But if he's thirsty when he gets out and he can't control himself, יערב המים ביין או בדבש וישתה. Then he should mix the water with wine or with honey and then drink. ואם סח בשמן במרחץ בימות הגשמים, אחר שישתתף, הרי זה טוב. And if he should anoint with oil during the winter months, after he's dried off, this is good, because that keeps your skin from chapping. לא ירגיל אדם עצמו להקיז דם תמיד. Okay, this is another thing that they used to do, is they would let blood. It was a normal thing to, as part of the medical practice, to let blood out periodically. So lo yargil adam atzmo le'akiz dam tamid. A person should not accustom himself to always let blood. V'lo yakiz dam ela im hayat tzarich lo biyoter. And he should only let blood if he really, really needs to. V'lo yakiz lo b'yimot ha'chama v'lo b'yimot ha'gshamim. and he should not do this in the middle of the summer or the winter. Ela biyomei Nisan u'me'at biyomei Tishrei. Rather, he should only let blood a little bit. He should only let blood during the month of Nisan, during Pesach, and a little bit during the days of Tishrei, the month we just came out of. Ume'achar hamishim shana, and once he's 50 years old, lo yakiz klal. He should never let blood once he's over 50. Lo yakiz adam dam v'yikenes lemerchatz. A person should not let blood and then go to the bathhouse. B'yom echad, on the same day. V'lo yakiz v'yetzel lederech, nor should he let blood and go off on the road. V'lo b'yom sheyavo min haderech, nor on the day when he comes in from a trip. V'yochal v'yishteh b'yom ha'hakazah, pachot mima she'hu ragil. And on a day when he does let blood, he should eat and drink less than what he's used to. V'yanuach b'yom ha'hakazah, and he should rest during the day he lets blood. V'lo yit'amel v'lo yitayel, and neither should he do any physical activity or wander around. And now we get into some more strange stuff, which is of the time period, and I think it's not currently accurate. But we continue. Shichvat zera, sperm, hi koach haguf v'hayav u'me'or ha'inayin. It's the strength of the body and of his life and the light of his eyes. V'kol zman shetetzeh biyoter, and any time it excessively comes out, in other words, he's having too much sex, haguf boleh v'kocho koleh v'hayav ovdim. His body wilts and his strength ends and his life ends. V'usha amar Shlomo b'chochmato, that's what says Shlomo Melech said in his wisdom. Al titen lanashim helecha udvarachecha limchot melachim. Don't give women your strength and your ways to the servants of the kings. Kol hashatuf b'be'ilah, anybody who is constantly involved in having sex. Zikna kofetzet alav, he will become prematurely aged. V'kochot tashesh ve'inav kehot, and his strength will diminish and his eyes grow dim. V'reach ra'anu def mipiv u'mishachyav, and bad smells will come out of his mouth and his armpits. U'sar rosho v'gabot einav v'riseh einav nosher, and the hair on his head and of his eyebrows and his eyelashes will fall. U'se'ar gzkano u'shechyav v'se'ar raglav roveh, but the hair on his beard and his armpits and on his legs will get thicker. V'shinav noflot, and his teeth fall out. V'arbe ke'evim chutz me'elu ba'im alav, and lots of other illnesses, pains besides these come upon him. Amru ha'hamim chachmei arofim, this the medical sages said, Ahad me'elef met b'she'ar chalaim, one of 1,000 dies of other causes. Va'elef mirov tashmish, but the majority from too much sexual relations. Lefichach tzarich adam lizaher b'davar zeh, therefore a person has to be careful about this. Im ratza liyot b'tova, if he wants to be in a good way. V'lo yiv'ol ele kshe'imtza gufo bari v'chazak biyoter, and he shouldn't have sex unless his body is healthy and very healthy and strong. Or he has erections without unwillingly. And even if he distracts himself, the erection remains. V'imtza kovid mimotnav lamata kilu choter betzim nimshechim ubsaroham. And he finds himself, the heaviness from his waist and below, as if his testicles are being pulled down and his body is hot. This kind of a person needs to have sexual relations, and it is medical treatment for him. Lo yiv'ol adam v'hu savea. A person should not have sex when he's full. V'lo ra'ev, nor when he's hungry. Ela har shitakel hamazon b'me'av. Rather, once the food been uh, has been gone through his stomach. V'yivdok negavav kodem b'ila v'ha b'ila. And like we said before, he has to check, make sure he has to go to the bathroom before and after sex. V'lo yiv'ol me'omed v'lo miyoshev. He should not have sex standing or sitting. V'lo b'beit merchatz v'lo b'yom shikenes lemerchatz, nor in the bathhouse, nor on the day that he goes to the bathhouse. V'lo b'yom ha'akaza, nor on the day that he's having his blood let. V'lo b'yom yetziah lederech o b'yam lederech, nor on the day he's going out on a trip or coming back from a trip. Lo lifnehem v'lo lacharehem, neither before nor after them. Kol hamanhig atzmo b'derchim ela she'orenu. Anybody who behaves according to these instructions we've given. Ani arev lo she'eno ba lidei holi kol yamav. I guarantee he will not become sick his entire life. Ad shi'yaskin harbe v'yamut, until he becomes very old and dies. Ve'eno tzarich lo rofeh, and he's not going to need a doctor. Uksheye gufo shelem ve'omed al boryo kol yamav, v'sheye gufo shelem ve'omed al boryo kol yamav, and his body will remain whole and complete his entire day, in his entire life. Ela im ken haya gufo ra mitchilat briato, unless his body was bad from the beginning. In other words, he was born with a defective body. O im haya ragil b'minhag min haminhagot ha'ra'im mitchilat muladato, or he spent a long time in one of these bad behavioral things that we mentioned. O im tavo makat dever o makat batzorot le'olam, or if a plague or a famine comes to the not famine, what's the word? When there's no rain, dry spell comes to the world. All right. And all these good behaviors that we described. Only a healthy person should behave according to them. But someone who's sick, or someone who has a sick limb or organ, or a person who behaved according to one of the bad ways for many years. Each of these has a different path that they should go and different ways of behaving according to their sickness. Like is explained in medical books. V'shinui veset chilat kol choli, and change of habit is the beginning of all sorts of illnesses. Kol makom she'en bo rofeh, any place which does not have a doctor. Echad bari v'echad choleh, whether a person is a healthy person or is a sick person. En ra'ui lo lazuz mikol advarim she'amarnu b'perek zeh. He should not stray from any of the things which we've given as advice here. Shekol achad mehen le'achrit tova hu mivi. For each of them brings to a good end. And then there's general advice here on what sort of things a person requires in a place he's going to live. Kol ir she'en ba asara dvarim ha'elu, ein talmid hachamim rashai ladur b'tocha. Any city in which these 10 things does not exist, a talmid hachamim, in other words, a Torah scholar, is not allowed to live in them. Ve'elohen, these are they. Rofeh, needs a doctor. Ve'uman, and a bloodletter. U'beta merchatz, and a bathhouse. U'beta kiseh, and some kind of an outhouse. Umayim mitzuim kagon naharu ma'ayan, and running water, well, water, for example, a river or a spring. Ubet knesset, and a synagogue. Umelamed tinokot, and someone who can teach children. Ulavlar, and a scribe. Ugebait tzedakah, and a person who collects tzedakah. Ubeidin makin v'chovshin, and beidin, which is allowed to render punishments. And that is the end of this rather long and somewhat difficult parak. I'm going to turn off the recording.